episode 80 of This and That and What the Fuck Else. And in this one I'm going to talk mostly about health and energy. And there's a few other things, but it's basically all about health and energy. Now, the first one, well actually before I start with that, there are things happening in the Ukraine that can make some people wonder and frown. We got information today that Russia has agreed to reinstate the grain corridors in the Black Sea, and there are people that are saying that Russia is showing weakness by doing that. I'm of the opinion that the Russians are playing a clever game there in Ukraine. I don't want to call it shouldn't be called a game, but it is actually a game. What is happening there now is, okay, they are busy destroying the electricity infrastructure, but it is important to take a note. They're not bombing the power stations. They're bombing the distribution network. So the power stations are intact, and I saw some articles on Telegram. It seems like there's a resistance movement beginning to take shape inside Ukraine. But it's early days, I'm not going to dwell on that now. Let's see how that works out. But with the Russians reinstating the routes for the grain exports, I personally think that it's most probably done to give Erdogan from Turkey some pats on the shoulders. Because what I have read, a hell of a lot of that grain that is exported from Ukraine goes to Turkey, and Turkey mills it, and then the milled products are exported from Turkey. And so maybe Putin was doing Erdogan a favor with this one. Another factor that we have to take consideration is that winter is approaching fast now in Ukraine. Currently, there's fighting between the Russians and the Ukrainians, but not serious fight, big movement. One of the reasons is that it is raining there, and that makes that countryside wet, and it is that black turf swell, which we all know can be seriously slippery and you get bogged down very quickly. Within about 3 weeks' time, it will start snowing. Then the ground is going to ice and become solid. But the most important thing is the landscape is going to be white. And wherever the Ukrainians move any of their equipment, be it rocket launchers, be it tanks, be it personnel carriers, the tracks will be clear to see. And we have now seen in the past 3 weeks, the Russians are doing a lot of their fighting with the drones. So I think things are going to change, but at the same time, the American midterms is in a week's time, and all the indications are that the Democrats are going to lose at least the House, and the Republicans has made clear that they will definitely review the money that is going to the Ukraine. The Americans are struggling at this point in time. There's American people that are really suffering, and there are more and more and more questions asked. Why is the government not helping the people? And they send all that money to the Ukraine. So I think there's issues coming. I'm sure Ukraine's going to run out of money. Europe is broke. Europe is broke. Europe cannot afford it to sustain Ukraine. And it is also quite clear now. The West is running out of weapons to send to the Ukraine. I've seen today another promise that Biden has made, but delivery will be in 2024 or 25. Some crazy date in it. So Zelensky has managed to effectively disarm the West and make Europe bankrupt. Well, let's see where that's going. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is this story that I picked up. Experimental antibody malaria drug tested in Africa. African researchers believe a new one-time drug created from a lab-made malaria-fighting antibodies can protect adults from the deadly disease for 6 months with just one IV delivery dose. The US developed experimental treatment provide 88% more effective at warding off infection than a placebo in the study of 330 villagers in Mali. By breaking the life cycle of parasites before they enter the liver, where they can multiply. Estimates suggest that the treatment could cost as little as $5 per child per malaria season. Now, this is really important, but what happened during the pestilence is most probably going to make a lot of people reluctant to take a shot. And for that, we should really be angry, because what these scamsters did with the pestilence was destroy the trust of the population in the medical fraternity. And then we get to this one. And I have spoken in a previous Skidmark, two from my previous Skidmark, about adrenochrome. And now this is really scary. If you look at that image that I'm showing now, and you can see the adrenochrome, leaked info providing the existence and harvesting of adrenochrome, then the adrenochrome mockery and reality, and then there's the ritual abuse secrets of the Illuminati and things like that. And then it says, Marines make a gruesome discovery in California. White hats searching for an alleged adrenochrome stockpile in Southern California got the shock of their lives when they breached an industrial warehouse in Chatsworth in the San Fernando Valley, only miles from some of the wealthiest zip codes in the United States. They had expected to find commercial-grade freezers brimming with bags of chilled adrenochrome, a pharmaceutical cocktail made of fluids extracted from the adrenal glands of terrified children and synthetic opioids, but found instead coolers containing organs, livers, lungs, kidneys, hearts, and yes, intestines that had been excised from adolescent children. Guys, we are living in a fucking evil world. And I have mentioned it previously in other Skidmarks. This adrenochrome harvesting and organ harvesting was a big business in the Ukraine. And when the Russians took Mariupol, in the Red Cross building in Mariupol in the basement, they also found similar things. That Ukraine is a viper's pit. And then we get to this pestilence thing. Now this woman, she made quite a name for herself for the way that she attacked the people that refused to take the snake poison. And I'm not going to read all of that. If you read in that black block what she says there, the anti-vaxxers, maskers, are dying in legions. Where the hell did you get that from? But that is what she posted. And pro-vaxxer blue check goes from cheering on the deaths of her political enemies to dying of a heart attack. And I'm going to show you a bigger image of this one tweet that you send out. You can stop the thing and look at it. It is ridiculous what she actually posted. And then you can look at this. This is more of her stuff. I'm also not going to read it because good reasons. And now she's kicked the bucket. And then we come to Italy. After 4 days in office, Giorgia Meloni, the new Prime Minister of Italy, abolished all jab mandates that were in place. Remember how all the woke liberals said she's a fascist? Well, she respects people's rights more than all those hypocrites. Well, that's a good step and good for Italy. And now we're getting to that Zelensky creature. Now I have to give you a little bit of background on this one before I start showing you stuff. This was in 2015. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky thought back in 2015 that it was a good idea to laugh at the water and energy blockade Crimean people was suffering. So funny it was worthy of a TV sketch. The second video is a queue for water in Kiev this week. Now I watched that video and you can look on this image, you can see how he is causing a scene around that bottle of water, and what really pissed me off was that the audience were laughing at these jokes that he was making about the fact that the Crimean people were without fresh water. And on this one, you can see he asked the presenter for a glass, and he took the bottle of water, and then instead of putting it in a glass, he started drinking it like that. You see, my dear Ukrainian compatriots, how your president joked merrily about the fact that thanks to the efforts of Ukraine, there is no water in Crimea. And you laughed so hard, it was so good for you that someone was very bad. And now, are you still funny? Is your president joking about the fact that many of you already have no water in your apartments? Let's have some fun with this. Now, I mean, this is the guy that the West is supporting. This is the guy that Western taxpayers are giving billions, millions and millions of dollars and euros to. Think about it. And then we get to the Donbass. Ukraine forces shell hotel in Lugansk. According to local authorities, the Metallurg Hotel in Lugansk was destroyed and one civilian is trapped under the rubble. Several apartment buildings have also been reportedly leveled in the strikes. This, look at all those images. This is what the Ukraine military is doing to civilians. This. I hope the Russians teach them a good lesson for what they are doing. And it's a shame the West is financing. The Western weapons is doing this. And then there's this. The amount of damage caused to the cities of DPR and LPR from shelling by Ukraine has already exceeded 223 billion rubles. This was reported by the Investigative Committee of the Russian Federation after the examination of several cities in the Donbass republics. These are over 500 social facilities, civil infrastructure facilities, and almost 10,000 multi-apartment residential buildings and houses in the private residential sector. The total cost of restoration work is already more than 223 billion rubles. This is what the Ukrainians are doing. Look at what happened in the past 2 weeks. The Russians are taking out that electricity network. There's nowhere that they hit civilian buildings. Nowhere. But look what the Ukrainians. And then we get to this interesting piece of information from Odessa. Vandals desecrate the monument to Catherine the Great in Odessa. A statue honoring the Russian Empress has been vandalized by unknown assailants in the Ukrainian port city. Footage appearing on social media shows a bag was put on the head of the monument and a noose wound around the arm. The attack is not an isolated case. Previously, slurs and threats were inscribed on the monument and threats about the demolition were made. Now, Odessa is a bit of a tough one, I think. The Russians don't want to destroy Odessa. The Russians don't want to see the destruction that happened in Mariupol repeated in Odessa. But the fact is they're going to take Odessa. The vast majority of the citizens of Odessa is Russians. And there is also a very strong Azov Brigade presence in Odessa that are keeping the population in check, because that is one of Ukraine's biggest fears, that there will be a popular uprising in Odessa. Let's see where this goes, but I don't think it's going to go the Ukrainian way. And then we get to the energy. Norway has the cleanest energy in the world. Solar and wind energy only accounts for 3% of their total mix. Here in South Africa, we have idiots who think we can rely entirely on solar and wind. And then there's some interesting graphs there. You can stop the video and look at it, because it gives you some percentages and things like that. But it's true what he says. South Africa cannot be powered by solar and wind. Then there's this. The plan is to shut down all coal power stations, effectively shutting down Eskom generation, and increase reliance on very useless solar and wind from IPPs. The idiots in charge are planning future load shedding. Their planned storage is only 5,000 megawatt. Read that and think about it and let that sink in. 5,000 megawatt. That is the storage. Now the next image is just for some information. This is a satellite image at night of the Ukraine, and look, no lights, just here and there. There's a little bit, there is electricity on the eastern side in the Donbass, but central and western Ukraine are basically without lights. And that was on the 17th of October. I'm sure if we can get a shot for tonight, it will be pitch black there. And then there is a little bit of information from Brazil. Rosatom wins the tender to provide fuel for Brazil's nuclear power plants. The total value of the tenders exceeds $140 million. A subsidiary of Russia's Rosatom State Atomic Energy Corporation has won a tender to provide Brazil with fuel for the production of fuel elements for nuclear power plants. Total value of the tenders exceeds 140 million rand. That is interesting, and I'm glad that Brazil has got their bearings together. And then this graph was quite interesting. The share of gas supply from Russia in selected European countries as of 2020. Now look at that. North Macedonia, 100%. Finland, 94%. Bulgaria, 77%. Slovakia, 70%. Germany, 49%. Italy, 46%. Poland, 40%. France, 24%. Now what is interesting, Finland, Russia has switched everything off to them, electricity and gas. So I wonder what they are doing now. I've heard that they are getting gas from Norway. I think Norway. And then Bulgaria. Bulgaria is now busy making a new deal with the Russians. Slovakia, I don't know what they are doing. Germany, we all know they've been completely isolated. The Nord Stream has been blown up. So I don't know how they're going to survive. Italy has got a similar problem, but Italy is getting their gas through the Turk Stream, so they're okay. Poland themselves switched their gas off themselves. They're gathering wood and they're buying coal and all of that type of shit. France, 24%. I don't know what they are doing, but their gas is also coming from Turk Stream, if I remember correctly. Then we get to our Minister of Finance. Eskom debt takeover. Kodongwana says gas, nuclear will be part of conditions. And I am really glad to hear that, because Montashe is also for nuclear, and at least the Minister of Finance is now with him on it, and seeing that gas and nuclear will be part of the conditions of the debt takeover. So hopefully they can survive the onslaught from the fucking green propeller people. This is an interesting map to look at. You can stop the video and take a closer look if you want to. Just gives you an indication of the energy production in America, specifically for homes. Almost 90% of US homes are primarily heated by natural gas or electricity. Heating oil and propane are regionally concentrated. And now look at those maps, you get an idea. Natural gas 46, electricity 41, propane 5, heating oil 4, other 3%. And in that other, that is where the propellers and the solar panels comes in. Nothing. Then we get to the EU. According to the United Nations, 1.8 million metric tons of shipments from Odessa grain deal corridor went to Spain, 1.3 million to Turkey, 860,000 to Italy, 840,000 to China, and only 67,000 to starving Yemen, and 40,000 ton to Afghanistan. Look at that. The EU has grabbed all the bulk of that grain. Total of, let's call it 100,000, did not go to the 100,000. So 1.7 million tons went to the EU. And this was for me something that made me frown. The defense ministers of Latvia and Hungary have exchange of views over their country's approach to the conflict in Ukraine, in which the Latvian defense minister accused Hungary of treason. How the hell is that? But that Baltic states, I don't know what their plan is, but they are cruising for a bruising. And then there's this that must make the EU taxpayers very happy. Ukraine has received military and equivalent aid equivalent to 86% of Russia's entire military budget. Kyslytsya, Ukraine's permanent representative to the UN, boasted. Let's take note, boasted. The main donors, Latvia 41% of its military budget, Estonia 37% of its military budget, Poland 15% of its military budget. And then the Baltic states are looking for shit with Russia, but they give their money that they're supposed to use for their own defense to the Ukraine. Let's see how this one pans out. And then we get to that, what a fuck, man. This is actually a tragic what a fuck. Look at that image. There's no words here. Just look at that image. This is the reality. And who is holding that little Zelensky so that he can keep on milking that dying cow? America. America has got the chain around the cow's neck and holds Zelensky on his hand to milk. I feel really sorry for the Europeans, and I've got empathy with them, but zero sympathy. This was all self-inflicted. And on that sad note, please give me a like, subscribe, and share the thing. Thank you for your support.